They looked perfect. The Christmas card showed them smiling. Father, mother, 3 beautiful children. The nicest house on Maple Ridge Drive. Everyone wanted to be them. March 15, 2017. Neighbors noticed newspapers piling up, mail overflowing. When police entered, they found all 5 dead. Father holding the gun. Murder-suicide. Case closed. But forensic expert Sam Reeves noticed something nobody else saw. The father was left-handed his entire life. So why was the gun in his right hand? The blood spatter was wrong. The timeline was impossible. The father died at 11:30 p.m., but the children died 90 minutes later. How does a dead man kill 3 children? And the neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, heard screaming that night. She called police. They never came. When David Harrington's team reopened this file, they discovered the perfect murder-suicide was actually just perfect murder. And the killer made one mistake. They didn't understand physics. Willowbrook Heights, an affluent suburban community about 30 miles outside a major metropolitan area. The kind of place where houses have 3-car garages, manicured lawns, and neighborhood watch signs on every corner. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone and nothing bad ever happens. Maple Ridge Drive was the crown jewel of Willowbrook Heights. Homes here started at $800,000. The residents were doctors, lawyers, successful business owners, people who made it. And at 1247, Maple Ridge Drive lived what everyone considered the perfect family, the Castellanos. James Castellano, 42, was a successful investment banker, tall, handsome, always impeccably dressed. His wife Monica, 39, was a former marketing executive who now dedicated her time to their children and charity work. Beautiful, elegant, the kind of woman other women both admired and envied. Their children, Emma, 14, honor student and varsity volleyball player. Lucas, 11, gifted in mathematics, already taking high school courses. And little Sophia, 7, the princess of the family, with her mother's dark hair and her father's blue eyes. The Castellanos hosted neighborhood barbecues. Monica organized the annual charity gala. James coached Lucas's little league team. Emma babysat for half the families on the street. They were involved, present, beloved. Their 2016 Christmas card, the last one they would ever send, showed them in matching red and white sweaters, standing in front of their decorated fireplace, 5 smiling faces, the American dream captured in glossy photo paper. 74 days later, they were all dead. March 15, 2017, Wednesday morning. Eleanor Patterson, 67, lived next door to the Castellanos at 1249 Maple Ridge Drive. She'd been their neighbor for 6 years, watched their children grow, exchanged pleasantries over the fence, borrowed cups of sugar, the usual suburban neighbor relationship. That morning, Eleanor noticed the Castellanos' newspapers, 3 days' worth piled up at the end of their driveway. Strange, James always picked them up before leaving for work. The mail, overflowing from the mailbox. Very strange. No cars had moved. The garage doors hadn't opened. No lights at night. Eleanor had noticed for 2 nights straight. Most telling, Eleanor hadn't seen the children. Emma always walked to the bus stop. Lucas rode his bike. Sophia's school bus picked her up at 7:45 a.m. sharp. None of them had appeared. Eleanor called Monica's cell phone. Voicemail. Called the house line. No answer. By 10 a.m., Eleanor's concern turned to alarm. She walked across the perfectly manicured lawn and knocked on the front door. No answer. Rang the doorbell repeatedly. Nothing. She called the Willowbrook Heights Police Department. "I'd like to request a wellness check on my neighbors, the Castellano family at 1247 Maple Ridge Drive. Something's wrong. Nobody's been seen for days." The dispatcher said they'd send an officer. At 10:47 a.m., Officer Derek Mills arrived. Young officer, only 2 years on the force. He knocked on the door. No response. Peered through windows. Curtains drawn. Couldn't see inside. Officer Mills called for backup. At 11:15 a.m., Sergeant Patricia Hayes arrived. Together, they made the decision to enter the home. Legal precedent, welfare check, reasonable belief that occupants may need medical assistance. They forced the front door. The smell hit them first. Anyone who's worked law enforcement knows that smell. Death. Days old. Sergeant Hayes radioed, "We need detectives," and the coroner, multiple deceased inside. Within 30 minutes, 1247 Maple Ridge Drive became a crime scene. Yellow tape, forensic units, news vans gathering at the street corner. And inside that beautiful house with the manicured lawn, investigators found a scene that would define their careers. Detective Raymond Cross was lead investigator. 23 years with Willowbrook Heights PD. He'd seen domestic violence, he'd seen suicides, he'd seen accidents, but he'd never seen anything like this. The master bedroom, second floor, corner room, large windows overlooking the backyard. Monica Castellano lay in bed, covers pulled up to her chest, eyes closed, almost peaceful, except for the bullet wound in her head, pillow soaked with blood. James Castellano sat on the floor, back against the bed, legs extended, gun in his right hand, single gunshot wound to his own head, dead. The children's rooms, Emma in her room, bed, same position as her mother, bullet wound, covers pulled up neatly. Lucas in his room, same, Sophia in hers, the youngest, same position. Someone had placed her teddy bear next to her. 5 bodies, 4 shots to victims, 1 to the shooter. Classic family annihilator murder-suicide pattern. On the nightstand in the master bedroom, a laptop, open, a typed note on the screen. "I can't do this anymore. The pressure, the debt, the expectations, I've failed them all. This is the only way to spare them from what's coming. God forgive me, James." Detective Cross had seen enough. Tragic, horrible, but unfortunately not unprecedented. Successful man, hidden financial problems, mental break, kills family then himself. The coroner, Dr. Alan Foster, arrived at 2 p.m. Initial assessment confirmed Detective Cross's theory. Time of death, approximately 72 hours ago. Sunday night, March 12. Local news that evening. Tragedy in Willowbrook Heights. Successful banker, kills family, self in murder-suicide. Case was processed quickly. Forensics collected evidence. Bodies sent to morgue. Family funerals arranged by Monica's sister from out of state. Within 1 week, the case was effectively closed. Murder-suicide. Tragedy. Community in shock. But case closed. Except Eleanor Patterson couldn't let it go, because she knew something nobody seemed to care about. She heard screaming that night. She called police. They said they'd send someone, but nobody came until 3 days later. And in a small forensic lab, Sam Reeves was looking at crime scene photos and seeing things that didn't add up. 2 years later, March 2019, David Harrington was reviewing closed cases in the metropolitan area, looking for stories for dark case files. The Castellano case caught his attention. Something about it felt too clean, too perfect, too quickly closed. He called Sam Reeves, his forensic specialist. "Sam, I'm sending you crime scene photos from a 2017 case. Family of 5 ruled murder-suicide. Just take a look. Tell me what you see." Sam Reeves, 34, had worked in forensic science for 12 years. Worked for federal agencies, state crime labs, now consulting independently. She'd testified in over 100 cases. If anyone could spot in inconsistencies, it was Sam. She opened the files David sent. Started with the master bedroom. James Castellano, right hand holding the gun, blood spatter on wall behind him, entry wound right temple. Sam zoomed in on the photo, studied the hand position, the blood pattern, the gun placement. Then she pulled up family photos David had included. Birthday parties, barbecues, holiday gatherings. Every photo showed James using his left hand, holding a beer bottle, left hand, signing a birthday card, left hand, grilling at a barbecue, spatula in left hand. Sam called David back within an hour. "David, the father was left-handed. So the gun is in his right hand. In suicide cases, people use their dominant hand. Always. It's instinctive. A left-handed person would put the gun to their left temple with their left hand, not right hand to right temple. David felt his pulse quicken. Could he have been ambidextrous? Possible, but unlikely. Let me look deeper. Sam spent the next 3 days analyzing every detail of the crime scene photos, and what she found was disturbing. Blood spatter. In Monica's bedroom, the spatter pattern on the wall behind the headboard was wrong. When someone is shot while lying down, blood sprays in a specific pattern based on physics, angle of entry, velocity, gravity. Sam calculated the trajectory. The spatter pattern suggested Monica was sitting up when shot, but her body was lying down, covers pulled up. Someone moved her body after death. Sam called David. This wasn't a murder-suicide. This was staged. We need to reopen this case. David Harrington contacted Willowbrook Heights Police Department, requested to speak with Detective Cross about the Castellano case. Cross, now retired, agreed to meet. They sat in a coffee shop in downtown Willowbrook. I remember that case, Cross said heavily. Worst thing I ever saw. Beautiful family. Just destroyed. David presented Sam's findings, the left-hand-right-hand discrepancy, the blood spatter inconsistency. Cross's face changed as he listened, from dismissive to concerned to disturbed. You're saying someone else killed them, staged it to look like James did it? That's exactly what I'm saying. Cross was silent for a long moment. Then there was something else, something I dismissed at the time. The neighbor, Eleanor Patterson, she called 911 the night of the murders, said she heard screaming. Dispatch logged it at 11:47 p.m. Sunday night. What happened with that call? Officer was supposed to respond, but there was a major accident on the highway that night. Multiple casualties. Every unit got diverted. By the time anyone could follow up, it was morning. No lights on. House quiet. We assumed false alarm. Mrs. Patterson called again Wednesday morning. That's when we found them. David leaned forward. So someone called for help. Help didn't come, and by the time you got there, everyone was dead, and it looked like murder-suicide. Somebody knew the timing, Cross said quietly. Knew we'd be overwhelmed that night. Knew they'd have time to stage everything before anyone checked. David called Jake Morrison, his street investigator. Jake, I need you in Willowbrook Heights. Find Eleanor Patterson, and find out who else was paying attention that weekend. Jake found Eleanor Patterson still living at 12049 Maple Ridge Drive. 2 years later, the house next door remained empty. Nobody wanted to buy the murder house. Eleanor, now 69, invited Jake inside. She'd aged since 2017. Grief and guilt had taken their toll. I heard them, she said immediately. Sunday night, around 11:30, I heard yelling through the walls. Monica's voice. She was screaming, "Get out! Get out of my house!" Then a man's voice, not James, someone else, deeper voice. Then I heard what sounded like fireworks. Pop, pop, pop all. Why didn't you tell police this? Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. I did. I called 911. I told the dispatcher someone was in trouble next door. She said they'd send someone. Nobody came. I stayed up all night watching. No police car ever came. What did you do next? Monday morning, I almost went over, but I thought maybe I overreacted. Maybe it was a domestic argument. I didn't want to interfere. Tuesday, I noticed the newspapers, the mail, still no movement. Wednesday morning, I called again. That's when they found them. Jake asked the critical question. Mrs. Patterson, did you see anyone else around the Castellano house that weekend? Eleanor thought carefully. Saturday afternoon, there was a van, white work van, parked in their driveway for about 2 hours. I assumed they were having work done on the house. Did you see the van's company name? No, just white, plain. Jake thanked Eleanor and immediately called David. We have a witness. Heard a stranger's voice during the murders. Heard gunshots. And there was a white van there the day before. David's mind was racing. White van, professional, someone who could access the house, someone James and Monica would let inside. David brought in Eleanor Cortez, his investigative journalist and digital forensic specialist. Eleanor, I need you to dig into James Castellano's finances. The suicide note mentioned debt, but initial reports said they had no financial problems. Eleanor spent a week pulling records. Bank statements, credit reports, investment accounts, tax returns. What she found surprised everyone. James Castellano's finances were complicated. He was an investment banker. His job was managing other people's money. He had dozens of accounts, multiple portfolios, complex investment structures. On the surface, everything looked fine. $2 million in savings, paid off mortgage, no credit card debt, retirement accounts fully funded. But Elena found something hidden in the details. In the 6 months before his death, James had been moving money, large sums, transferring between accounts in patterns that didn't make sense unless he discovered someone was embezzling from his clients, Elena said, presenting her findings to David. She pulled up a spreadsheet. Look, in September 2016, James started investigating discrepancies in his firm's accounts. Small amounts at first, $10,000 here, $20,000 there. But over 3 years, someone had stolen over $4 million from client accounts. Did he report it? He was building a case. I found encrypted files on his work computer. The police never checked it thoroughly. James was documenting everything, names, dates, transfers. He was planning to go to federal authorities in March 2017. David stared at the evidence. He was killed before he could expose someone. But who? Elena asked. His firm had 47 employees. David called Marcus Chen, his criminal psychologist. Marcus, we need to profile the killer. This is sophisticated, planned. Who are we looking for? Marcus Chen reviewed everything. Crime scene photos, financial evidence, witness testimony, timeline reconstruction. He sat with David and presented his analysis. This killer is organized, highly intelligent, familiar with the family, someone James trusted enough to let into his house on a Sunday night, someone from his work, David asked. Most likely. Look at the staging. The killer understood how police would interpret the scene. They knew murder-suicide is the first conclusion in family annihilator cases. They staged everything to fit that narrative. But they made mistakes, Sam interjected. The hand, the blood spatter, the timeline. Marcus nodded. Because the killer isn't forensic expert. They're financially smart, but scientifically naive. They staged what they thought police would see, but didn't understand the science. David asked, what about the children? Why kill them? Marcus's expression darkened. Because they were home. They were witnesses. The killer came for James and Monica, probably confronted them about the embezzlement evidence. Monica screamed. The neighbor heard. The killer panicked and killed Monica, then had to kill James, then realized the children had heard everything, couldn't leave witnesses. The room fell silent. So we're looking for someone at James's firm, David said. Someone with access to client accounts, someone who knew James was investigating. Elena pulled up James's work files. I have a list of 12 people who had access to the accounts where money went missing. I can narrow it down by cross-referencing who knew James's schedule, who would have his home address, who her screen froze. An email notification from an anonymous sender. Subject line, stop investigating. Message body, the Castellano case is closed. Keep it that way, or you'll join them. David looked at his team. We're close. Someone's scared. Let's find out who. Elena traced the threatening email. It came from an encrypted service, routed through multiple countries. Professional-level digital concealment. But Elena was better. She found the origin point, a coffee shop in downtown metropolitan area. Security cameras. She pulled footage from the date, time the email was sent. A man in his 50s. Business suit. Laptop. Working for 47 minutes. Left before anyone could notice. Elena ran facial recognition. Cross-referenced with James's firm employees. Match. Kenneth Vance. 53. Senior Vice President at Castellano's investment firm. James's direct supervisor. David pulled Kenneth Vance's file. Impeccable reputation. 28 years in finance. Married. 2 adult children. Member of country club. Clean criminal record. But Elena dug deeper. Kenneth's finances showed something interesting. He'd made large cash deposits in 2015 and 2016, always just under $10,000, the threshold that triggers bank reporting requirements. He knew the system, Elena said. He's been embezzling for years, small amounts from multiple accounts. James figured it out. Jake did street-level investigating, talked to Kenneth's neighbors, ex-employees, country club staff, built a picture. He's desperate, Jake reported. Lost money gambling, online poker, sports betting. He's been stealing to cover losses. But James was about to expose everything. David contacted Willowbrook Heights police, presented all evidence. Detective Cross, though retired, consulted. They needed concrete proof Kenneth was in the Castellano house that night. Sam Reeves went back to the physical evidence. The original investigation had collected DNA samples from the crime scene, standard procedure. But with murder-suicide ruling, they hadn't processed most of it. Why would they? They already knew who the killer was. Sam requested access to the unprocessed evidence, hair samples, fingerprints, DNA swabs. In the master bedroom, on the doorframe, forensic techs had collected a partial fingerprint, never processed. Sam ran it through databases. Match Kenneth Vance. He was there, Sam told David. His fingerprint is on the bedroom doorframe. He tried to stage it carefully, but he touched the frame while positioning James's body. But defense lawyers could argue he'd been there before, for legitimate reasons. They needed more. Sam examined the gun. The weapon used was James's own pistol, registered to him, kept in a lockbox in his closet. The killer used James's gun to make it look like suicide, but there was transfer DNA on the gun grip, not just James's DNA. Someone else had handled it. Sam processed the sample, ran it through databases. Match Kenneth Vance. We have him, Sam said. His DNA is on the murder weapon. He can't explain that away. April 2019, 2 years after the murders, federal authorities arrested Kenneth Vance at his office. Charges: 5 counts of first-degree murder, embezzlement, fraud, obstruction of justice. Kenneth's face when arrested. Shock. He'd thought he'd gotten away with it. For 2 years he'd lived free while the Castellano family lay in graves. In interrogation, Kenneth initially refused to speak, but when presented with the fingerprint evidence, the DNA, the financial records, the witness testimony, he broke. Not a full confession, but enough. James called me Sunday night, Kenneth said. Said he wanted to discuss some discrepancies he'd found. He asked me to come to his house. I went. I didn't mean for anyone to die. What happened? He showed me everything, all the evidence he'd compiled. Said he was turning it over to federal authorities Monday morning. I begged him not to. Told him I'd pay it back. He refused. Said I'd committed fraud, violated trust, stolen from clients. He was going to destroy my life. So you killed him. Kenneth's hands shook. Monica came downstairs, heard us arguing, started yelling at me to leave. I don't even remember pulling the gun. James kept it in his closet. I knew where it was. Monica screamed. I shot her. Then I had to shoot James. Then the children. They came out of their rooms. They saw me. So you murdered 3 children to cover your crime. Kenneth put his head in his hands. I didn't have a choice. Marcus Chen, observing through the one-way mirror, said to David, he absolutely had a choice. Every second, he chose wrong. Kenneth Vance's trial began in January 2020. Media coverage was intense. The Willowbrook Heights massacre became national news. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Fingerprints at the crime scene, DNA on the murder weapon, financial records showing embezzlement motive, witness testimony from Eleanor Patterson, forensic evidence showing staging, Kenneth's own partial confession. The defense tried to argue diminished capacity, mental break, temporary insanity. Marcus Chen testified as expert witness. Mr. Vance showed careful planning. He waited until Sunday night, when he knew the family would be home and neighbors would be less alert. He used the victim's own gun to suggest suicide. He staged each body carefully. He left a typed note. This is not temporary insanity. This is premeditated murder. Sam Reeves explained the forensic evidence to the jury. The blood spatter, the body positioning, the gun placement, everything was staged. But the killer made critical errors because they didn't understand forensic science. They thought they were creating a perfect murder-suicide. They created a perfect case against themselves. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Sentencing: 5 life sentences without possibility of parole. Monica's sister, Patricia Reeves, gave a victim impact statement at sentencing. My sister was the kindest person I knew. Her children were beautiful, bright, full of life. James was a good man who tried to do the right thing, expose fraud, protect his clients. Kenneth Vance didn't just kill 5 people. He destroyed families. He destroyed a community's sense of safety. He destroyed our faith in justice because for 2 years we believed the lie that James killed his own family. I'm grateful to David Harrington and his team for never accepting the easy answer, for looking deeper, for giving us the truth. My sister and her family can finally rest in peace, and Kenneth Vance will spend the rest of his life in prison, which is exactly where he belongs. The courtroom was silent, except for quiet crying. David, in his studio, camera focused on him. The Castellano family deserved better. They deserved a thorough investigation from the start. Eleanor Patterson deserved a response when she called for help that night. This case reminds us, never accept the easy answer. Family annihilator murder-suicides do happen, but not every tragic scene is what it appears to be. Kenneth Vance was smart enough to embezzle $4 million over 3 years, smart enough to stage an elaborate crime scene, but he wasn't smart enough to understand blood spatter physics, wasn't smart enough to remember that James Castellano was left-handed. Small details solve cases. A fingerprint on a doorframe, DNA transfer on a gun grip, the wrong hand holding a weapon. Sam Reeves saw what local investigators missed. Because she looked at the evidence without assumptions, she questioned everything, and Eleanor Patterson never gave up. She knew what she heard. She knew something was wrong. For 2 years she lived with guilt, thinking if she'd been more persistent that night, maybe someone would have been saved. But this wasn't her fault. She did everything right. She called for help. The system failed. The Castellano children, Emma, Lucas, Sophia, never had a chance. They were witnesses to their parents' murder. Kenneth Vance decided 3 children's lives were worth less than his freedom. He was wrong, and now he'll spend the rest of his life remembering that wrong decision. James Castellano died trying to do the right thing, expose fraud, protect innocent people's investments. His reward was death for his family and 2 years of being falsely accused of murdering them. Today the record is corrected. James Castellano was a victim, not a perpetrator. His family was murdered by a coward who chose money over human life. Rest in peace, Castellano family. Justice finally came. Final image, Memorial Garden in Willowbrook Heights Community Center, dedicated to the Castellano family. 5 trees planted, 1 for each victim. Plaque reads, in memory of James, Monica, Emma, Lucas, and Sophia Castellano, forever in our hearts. Truth prevailed. But what happens when the evidence is even more hidden? When a killer leaves no fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses? In our next case, a highway stretching across empty desert became a serial killer's hunting ground. 7 women disappeared over 5 years. Authorities closed the case. But one investigator noticed a pattern nobody else saw. Next time on Dark Case Files.